Hello and welcome to The Wizard and the Priestess. My name is Nuala and my co-host is...
But
Welcome to our episode on the illustrious
yep.
birth.
Is that over? Are you trying to say illustrious?
I don't know what I was trying to say.
Okay.
I get a bit confused with my words.
Cool.
So yes, today we are diving into birth and all the pieces that come with that. Birth can open up a can of worms for a lot of women. It can bring back a lot of sensations and feelings. It can bring up a lot of guilt. It can activate a lot of joy and happiness. And it just really depends on how that birth played out.
Yeah.
Now, Matt, do you want to dive into some of the physiology of birth?
Well, I think that would thrill you
It
to
would.
no end.
I want to.
I'm just going to do that as you go.
Oh, you're going to jump in along
Jump
the
in.
way.
I'm going to completely interrupt and just be quite rude with it, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I will move through then the importance of birth and the importance of birth as a transition. So as we spoke about last time, we talked about the conception and pregnancy journey of a mother, of a woman, and of the baby as they grow within the womb, and how they receive their curriculum from an energetic standpoint and the power of us doing our work as mothers whilst they are in our womb. And now we are moving through into the actual transition. So
we're at, what phase are we at now in the pregnancy? Are we coming up to the day?
okay, so let's do where no, we were going to die, birth was imminent. But I will just take a step back for a minute and just touch on a few things in terms of the importance of birth is that it is a huge transition. It is our initial big transition outside on the physical realm.
Yep.
So we've had a huge transition from soul into physical, and now we're experiencing physically. So we are becoming an earthly being. And therefore, what happens from now on in is functioning from that holistic perspective of us being spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical being.
Yeah, the complexity.
The complexity of humanness. And so birth is very powerful and potent. And in physiological birth, we would like to see a beautiful flow and process of magic, and the birth imprint being one where the mother is feeling safe, held, protected, where her experience is revered, and where the space that is being held for her is honoured, and more than anything, she's trusted. And she's instilled with this trust over and over and over throughout that process. Now, in order to get to that position so that you can have that sort of birth and experience this sort of transition for your baby and for yourself, there's certain aspects of preparation that can happen. Now, obviously, if you were to follow a more ancestral model of care, you have done the work through pregnancy where you have introspected and gone in and connected to and time again reminded yourself of your ability, your deep knowing, your deep trust, and then supported yourself with the people that believe in you, believe in birth, love and honor you, and are willing to watch and witness, then you are setting yourself up in the best possible way. Now, what comes up in birth will come up. Birth takes you to a place where you may or may not be prepared for. It'll happen and it's going to happen how it does in all of its imperfection. It just is what it is. Part of my belief is that a baby chooses the way that they come into this world based upon the way that they've chosen the mother and the father in the first place, based upon their knowledge of what they know will happen throughout the guidance of the pregnancy into the transition.
And if someone didn't go down the ancestral path, they went down the typical medical?
Yeah. Or it mightn't be typical medical, but anything that goes into the registered body of the medical world, that is the other option.
And what if there was a synopsis for that journey?
The synopsis for that journey in terms of birth will probably start and end with fear.
Okay.
In that the beginning is we need to ensure that we've followed you throughout your pregnancy and in this preparation for birth, that your body will physiologically come through it.
Yep.
So there's testing and checks and all of those pieces, very external.
Likely a drug or two.
Likely
as well,
some medications, but it's not to say that that's like that you cannot have a physiological birth and you cannot have an empowering birth through that system. It's not set up for that though.
Right.
It's not
The
set up.
body or that system?
The system is not set up
Okay.
to support physiological birth. It is not set up to trust. It is set up to risk assess. And that is essentially what you will get. Time and time again, they will assess the risk and adjust from there.
Yep.
Now, those adaptations can be seen as necessary. And that is that.
Mm-hmm.
They can be seen as necessary.
Yep.
Especially from the registered practitioner who is implementing their interventions.
Mm-hmm. So we're coming up to the birth.
Yeah, so from my perspective, in terms of preparation for birth, it's all about preparation through pregnancy and getting the team that is right for you, that will support and love you in the way that you want to be supported and loved.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way that you set yourself up.
Yeah.
Now, for me personally, as I traverse the ancestral model of pregnancy and birth, I get really clear on the things that empower me. I get really clear on the people that I need in a space that will continue to empower me and deeply trust me. Because I already trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
There is no fear right now. Through birth, potential fears to come up. Through all of the layers and levels, of course, open to experiencing what is there.
Sure. Especially if it's the
first birth, absolutely.
Yeah.
Difficult to really separate from the fear.
Sure.
Unless you have really been supported through all the transitions of your life. So through your own birth, supported through your own transition into puberty, through your own transition into I guess the next one is motherhood, is the next transition. So through that pregnancy that
you say for a lot of women that's their rite of passage, the birth.
It is a rite of passage, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is not the only one.
Sure.
Their own birth, their own puberty was also a massive rite of passage, which should have been respected and revered. And celebrated. Absolutely. And then continually celebrated each month as she bleeds.
Yeah.
And then into the birth. So, man, if we had a world of women and children and young girls that were actually celebrated in all of their power, we would have a completely different world.
It would, it'd be a bit different, wouldn't it?
Very different.
Yeah.
So I'm just bringing it back to the way that I've traversed my own pregnancy and the way that I would view birth, and I would move into it and I do move into this birth feeling empowered and ready. I feel strong physically. My body is adjusted in all the right ways. My mental zone, my emotional capacity, and I'm listening in and I'm reminding myself of all the things. So
is that a daily thing for you?
Daily practice?
Yep.
Yeah. So throughout pregnancy, I've introduced different sorts of rituals depending on the trimester and the month relating to the Taoist principles of birthing and pregnancy. And so, some months I was really focused on my skin, and that was a really big part of my whole daily routine where I would really be, doing all those bits and pieces, and that would focus me on introspection on, what is this skin? What is this body? What is this flesh? And then I might journal on those things. Lots of internal dialogue work. So a lot of, I guess you'd call it trauma work in terms of what are the patterns that are coming up? What are the patterns that are seeking to be redeemed through this pregnancy? What are the splinters that are showing and shining their light, and how can I see more light in those?
With the ancestral model, is there a focus on, because I know just working with clients, they feel like there's a lot of karma coming up. Do you feel, is that a thing for you?
I wouldn't necessarily call it karma as such, but potentially that is a word. From my perspective, it's more about the shining of the shadow or the 7 Po, the life lessons that you were to learn up until that point before you made the transition into motherhood.
Right.
And so those things start to come to the surface. And that could be stuff from your own birth. That could be stuff through your life walk. That could be ancestral stuff through that is still not healed through your line.
Yeah, through the family.
Or
lineage.
made aware of. And I think that is something to touch on, that most of the time when you are traversing, say, the registered hospital or medical model, that this stuff isn't even talked about, let alone thought of, but it's there. Because you will have women talking about, oh, I never even realized how big the birth was for my mother, or, you know, I didn't realize, but my grandmother died during childbirth with my mother, and therefore my mother had this experience, and now she's trying to live precariously through us and my family and now my young children and all these, you know, these bits and pieces that are quite shadowy, but they never got actually worked through.
Yep.
And so then now the mother who's pregnant is working through them as she steps on the precipice of birth. And so that is why right before we move towards birth, we want to slow it all down so that we can actually receive the wisdom and allow it to move and dissipate. We become a little bit more emotional, a little bit more insular. And that's part of it. That's actually following your Tao and following that inward view.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't necessarily personally say that it is karma that is coming up for your personal karma. However, I don't have the greatest depth in terms of karma and karmic energy, if you know what I mean. So my focus would be more on, okay, it could be karmic, it could be your own Po, which is your life lessons that are coming up, and that's how I would view it. It's more like your life lessons that you are here to learn, that your soul chose to learn, are now coming up to be received or redeemed, and then released. And this is why the potency of pregnancy and birth and that early month or two after birth are so precious and so important. And that is the ancestral model's belief.
Right.
You will not see a traditional culture in the world that does not revere the birth and does not honor the woman and the baby and the emotional impact that or the emotional power that is available.
Well, it's another universe coming into their tribe, where in the medical model, typically you're just a number in the system. There's a huge difference in the psyche for those involved with that.
Yeah.
And I've got 4 sisters. They've all got 2 kids. So not that I've been involved directly with those births, but I have had 2 or 3 clients who wanted me present for their birth. They asked me to deliver. Hard no. So
why would they ask you to deliver their birth?
Don't know.
Baby?
They just trusted.
Oh, yeah, they trusted you.
And a little bit, that's not my skill set.
I want to remind you to...
Good at other stuff. But I have been in the room.
When they birthed.
Yep.
I just want to remind everyone that no one births their baby except for the mother birthing the baby.
And I'm getting a very intense look right now while she's saying that. She's serious. Don't do it.
Just deadly serious. No one births your baby. No midwife, no doctor, no doula, no birth keeper. You birth your baby. That's it. End of story. Closed.
Sorry.
I just want to get clear on that verbiage and that use of words as a woman comes to the birth and he's like, can you come and deliver my baby? Oh, they delivered my baby. They didn't do shit, man. Your body delivered that baby. And maybe if they intervened and pulled your baby out, well, then it wasn't a matter of them delivering. They broke you. Okay.
So with that, can you talk through the process?
Yeah, wow, I wasn't expecting to say that then. So I guess the thing from my perspective is that your body is made for this.
Uh-huh.
Your body doesn't grow a human inside of your womb incapable of exiting.
Mm-hmm.
How can a woman sit here and be like, oh, yeah, the miracle of my pregnancy, I had sex, and somehow this sperm found its way.
That's not the stalk?
No, man. But somehow this sperm found its way all the way up to through a fallopian tube, pushed by the cilia, supported by the sperm, the semen itself, the ejaculate. And then up they go and they find this egg. And there's thousands of them, millions maybe,
There should be hundreds, at least
hundreds of thousands, but say millions of sperm trying and like attacking at this egg. Like, it's just magic. And then the egg goes, you know what? I think you're the perfect one. And they allow them in. And then they allow the egg in, the sperm in, and then they instantly start creating.
Hitting it off.
Yeah. And they're like, here, we are on. We are going to do the dance. Our soup is, this mother and father in this moment have created this energetic soup that is turning into physical vibration instantaneously. And now we're just going to dance our way down into this womb, and we're going to attach an implant, and we're actually going to grow ourselves a separate organ to ourselves that is connected to our source, our mother, who's going to feed us. We're going to spend 12 weeks figuring out all the organs in our body, and this, all of a sudden we've got a whole human form by 12 weeks that then matures and matures and matures until such time as it is like, wow, this womb space is a little bit too small for me. I have to focus on dying so that I can exit. I have to die, as in dying as a fetus, and become a child.
But what that really is, as well, is the caterpillar becoming the butterfly.
Absolutely.
It's the metamorphosis. Yeah. Sorry, as you were.
Love that.
Thanks.
And so I don't know any caterpillar that went into its chrysalis.
Good word.
Thank you. And went, oh, fuck, I'm not going to get out of here.
Yeah.
But hopefully there's a surgeon available to help me out.
To pull out, to suck out, yeah.
And that's such a really good analogy. There is I don't know if this is actually real, but this man was watching a butterfly break free of the chrysalis. And whilst they were breaking free, they were struggling. And there was all this struggle. And so they opened the chrysalis for them, and the butterfly never flew.
Wow. It's interesting, isn't it?
And I'm not saying that is the case when you choose to have a registered medical modelled birth.
Yeah.
That is not true.
Because
that is not the truth.
The research between forceps babies, C-section babies, and natural birth babies, as they develop into a grown adult, there's a lot of research into that, showing the differences between each one.
And they're massive.
Yeah.
However, if you are to traverse the registered medical model, it is very difficult to consider, to really believe that you can have a physiological birth. It is, I have patients that I support through their whole preconception but pregnancy journey and then postpartum, and they're so excited to share with me how things were going until they went astray. And most of the time I can probably tell straight away how this is going to go through their pregnancy, and I really try to plant seeds and support them to come back in and follow this ancestral model with me and be with and reconnect and follow their intuition and be guided by these, these shadows or peaks that are coming up that want to be redeemed, want to be listened to and released, and try and support them to find that information within themselves to do that work. And yet we get to the end and moving into the birth space where they've done all what they think is the preparation. They now understand the physiology of birth. They understand the stages, and then they move in there and they've got their beautiful, this is how I want my birth to go. I would like it to be physiological. And then you move into the hospital system or the registered medical system, however that looks. That could also be a home birth with a practicing midwife. Anyone that is registered within the birth system has something to answer for. And therefore they will do what they are meant to do in certain situations. Therefore they cannot fully trust you. Because if they fully trusted your physiology, then they would be almost obsolete. And that is where the ancestral model picks up.
Mm-hmm. So we've ancestral to now then. Where are we at? Is this D-Day?
Okay,
Week before, day before?
We're at D-Day.
Okay.
In terms of ancestral birth,
Mm-hmm.
you would start to feel something, start to feel a shift in your psyche, and that probably starts a week or two before you actually give birth. You start to...
So you get a subtle sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subtle or really big, depending on how connected you are.
Yeah.
But even you don't have to be connected and get a really big, like, I just want to clean my house. Like, I've never cleaned a house before.
Yeah, right.
I want to be away from every person who looks at me funny, who makes me feel anything but perfect. And then within the hours or days leading into birth, you'll start to feel this shift and adjustment. And then slowly there will be sensations that start that kind of epitomize the beginning of labour. And then you traverse that and you lean in and you resist as little as possible and you allow yourself to go with your flow. And the more you go with your flow, the more your body hears you and the more your body trusts you, and then it opens and it opens and it opens. And then as you open, and even for first-time mothers, generally that not knowing is very hard. So the resistance that comes up
Sure.
is common and hard, and it becomes even more imperative that the person that you brought into your space or the people that are in your space believe in you, even though they don't know that they can, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They believe in you because of your ancestry as a human being on this earth. That is why they believe in you. No other reason. They believe in you because you are a human being that grew a baby from a seed inside of your womb, and now is the time for them to exit. And so...
And do you do much work with guys as well with that?
Partners?
Partners?
Like,
Yes.
as in the partner of the birthing woman, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I would like to do that more
Right.
throughout the whole pregnancy, so they understand the importance of being with their woman and being with them as they traverse.
Not just physically, just mentally, emotionally.
Mainly emotionally. Physically, I mean, man, useless. I mean, because at the end of the day, you...
That's the thing, that's why I brought it up, because guys are relatively useless in that situation, especially the day of the birth.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I said it last time or not, but the number one thing you say to a guy, the guy just wants to fix the problems. That's what we're wired to do.
Yep.
So we just want to fix, we want it to be all peaceful, all calm, everyone to be happy, everyone to get along. That's just what guys want.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Simply, she's going to go to a place where he can't go. He just has to trust her to do that and be there for anything else that happens. If she wants a sandwich, get her a sandwich. So she wants someone out of the room, get them out of the room.
She wants someone to rub their back, they rub her back.
Rub the back. Rub the back. Absolutely. But a lot of guys, they feel powerless.
Yeah.
In that.
So for a time, I would do a lot of acupressure preparation. So I would teach partners tips and tricks, and I would offer them tools that they could use. I would offer them ways that they could calm their partner. I would offer them ways that they could be with her. They could connect to her more. I would give them practical advice in terms of what I knew or had been taught. And then slowly I've come to a point where their most important role is to witness her, to love her, and to revere her through her birth. To every time they look at her to be like, wow, you are an amazing powerhouse. And have nothing else.
And for a guy, it's
mind.
very humbling. Because the guy's like, no. Nope.
That's totally fine.
Which is, yeah.
And I guess some form, like very animalistic.
Yeah.
The thing that is in ancestral models, you would find that majority wouldn't have men there, right? There would just
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a grandmother or a mother or sisters and aunts.
There'd be a matriarchal.
Be a matriarchal system of support and love, and eventually just sort of like that hospital scene where the dad's sitting outside the door and then the doctor calls out down the hall, "It's a girl!" Like, so messed up. But that is sort of essentially ancestral in the way that it potentially was. Now, today is not that way. Today we have a piece where the partner is actually more and more involved in the way that they bring their energy into the space, because energy is an intervention.
Yeah.
Energy has a massive potential to impact a birth and a birthing woman. So whatever he feels, she has the potential to feel.
Yeah.
Now, I've sat in birth where the birth was absolutely fantastic. It was the most empowering experience I've sat with for a time. And it was joy to watch. And afterwards, when we had a bit of a debrief, the partner was like, "Yeah, I was really scared." And I was like, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting, because you really held that together."
Yeah.
And
That's what we do.
but I've also been in space where that hasn't been, where it's a different. I mean, I've only been at home birth, so I don't know. I can't imagine what happens outside of the home. However, in a home birth, when someone is sort of feeling a lot of emotion, it's not a terrible thing. I have actually not witnessed or been a part of a birth where I've haven't been so deeply
Just in the zone.
and just so happy for the women that I've been with and their partners and all the bits and pieces. So I haven't really, but that was quite an interesting thing for even for the birthing mother, who was literally being held by him.
Yeah, right.
To not actually feel that, because that's quite uncommon, because usually if there is fear in your space, you will feel it. If there is an energy that shifts in your space, you will feel it. Because you are so open to that as a mother. In that moment, you are being broken open to prepare you to transition into the motherhood, whether that's mother or mother again.
Okay. Birthing position.
Whatever you want.
Go.
Be in whatever birthing position you want. However your body is guiding you to move in that way.
So the classic, I guess it's more the medical model, is lay down in a bed, legs apart, angled maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not ideal, and part of me a few years ago would have been like, that is terrible, don't labour on your back. I mean, probably would say that in terms of stirrups and someone staring down your vulva or vagina into your vagina with like a light on their head.
And potential tools.
And their face all masked up and their hands all gloved. Like, man, that's like vulnerable breakdown. Like, I can't even fathom how that would feel. But
I think the
if
position,
you want to birth on your back, if that's a position that feels comfortable for you, then your baby will come out.
I think, your body would innately know what position to get into. And I've seen some all but standing up or with one leg on a chair. I've seen in all fours, all kinds of positions. And when I first saw it, I like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I didn't know that at the time. This is what prompted me to study that kind of thing. Because in the medieval days, it was primarily standing up.
Yeah, leaning against something.
Yeah, like looking like you're doing a push-up against the wall. That's the kind of position.
A push-up?
Sort of, yeah.
Like facing the wall?
Yeah, your hands are on it. Not doing an actual push-up. Like a wall push-up.
No, because I guess that there is in traditional Aboriginal culture, in some part, I mean, a particular traditional culture in Armidale, they would press their back against a tree.
Yeah, okay.
So they would be pressing against the tree and then squatting down and releasing the baby.
Yeah, that's help gravity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where laying down or sitting up is actually anti-gravity.
Maybe. However, the gravity doesn't really have that much impact on what's happening inside physiologically. So if we think about what actually is happening physiologically inside of the womb, the cervix is dilating. Do
it to the camera.
Okay. The cervix is dilating, and as it's dilating, all those fibers are creating a kicker on the top of the cervix, right? I mean, on the top of the uterus. So as this happens, as this whole piece of flesh is moved back, that energy is being built and built and built above. And that is what pushes the baby down and out. So whether or not you are laying on your back, okay, sure, it could make like a millimeter of difference. But I would say it's more about that, like the sensation for the mother. Like if she's being told to lay on her back by her inner intuition, then that is the position for her to move into.
Yeah.
If someone externally is looking at her and saying, okay, on your back, legs in the stirrups, I'm going to shine a light down your vagina. Well, yeah, probably not. But I mean, that's anti-gravity, because mainly more is like the hips position have to also adjust a little bit. And it's by millimeters or centimeters potentially. But I think it's just a gentle I mean, this is obviously, I'm talking more from an ancestral model, where the more that we've guided ourselves through pregnancy and preparation for birth, we actually trust what that says. And then the more we trust what that says, we move in that way intuitively. Now, when we look at the hospital or, you know, that registered model, it's like obviously, but there has been so much intervention before that point in time.
Yeah.
You have left your home to go and be with 100 other people. You have literally walked past probably 15 people before you've even gotten to the point where you're going to birth your baby. You have seen lights and plastic and, you know, you have been cold or probably not feeling so much cold, but your body is feeling cold. The adrenaline is pumping, that's keeping you empowered and going. But, you know, that there is so much intervention before they're like, get on your back and let me check inside of your uterus to see, or your womb, and see whether it's doing what we expect it to do.
Like
And
clockwork.
And let's check that your
Just like the book.
Baby is in the right position. You know, I've been at numerous births that I'm sure the baby was probably not in optimal positioning. However, when I've debriefed with these mothers, it's pretty clear also that there was stuff coming up. There was emotional stuff that was beautifully coming up. It was showing her pieces of herself that she hadn't looked at, that she hadn't yet understood. And it was showing her hard. And whether or not she was meant to traverse those at whatever point, she was doing it now. And then eventually, you know, there was, with one birth, we did some adjustments with the midwife, and the midwife kind of like supported her to do a few different techniques and try and slow down that pushing, that kicker that's literally just pushing out her baby and get her in a position that was, you know, trying to defy gravity, getting her upside down or getting her on her side. And to some extent, maybe that really helped.
Yeah.
You know, so she wasn't pushing for so long. So there wasn't too much heavy weight going into her, onto her pelvic floor and into her womb and into her hips. Another birth I watched, and she took 9 hours. But what happened at the end was when she released and she understood and trusted that my body is actually capable. And we would have never known that she may not have trusted her body fully until that point in time.
Yeah.
But as she traversed labour, she was reminded over and over, or she at least reminded us over and over, that my body is not doing as it's meant to.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just a very clear indicator of the power with which was to watch her traverse that and birth her perfectly healthy baby, who, if you saw them, you would be like, wow, they are like blissed out perfection.
Yeah.
However, had she traversed a different model of care, there is no way she would have come out on that way.
What do you say to clients that come in who they say they've say scheduled a C-section or an epidural or this sort of birth, that sort of birth? What do you say to those?
Most of the time I just hold their hand and walk them in the way they want to be walked. If you choose a path that isn't part of the ancestral model, well, then I'm going to support you no matter what. I think that there's pieces of guidance that I can offer in terms of, okay, is this what you really want? Is this what feels right for you? Because this is going to have an impact in some way or another. How can we do it in a way that makes you feel most supported? How can you do it in a way that makes you feel most nourished? To actually try and do it in a way that makes more physiological sense. I think most of the time it's walking into birth a little, a patient said this to me the other day, green, where you sort of don't really know or recognize, I just trust them. You know, you walked through the first time and they're like, oh, I just trust what they tell me. And then after you've walked through the first time and it went okay, even if it didn't go okay, you do it again. You're like, oh, I trust them again. I don't know a single experience in a person's life where when it goes really bad and you feel terrible, but you choose the same model of care the next time. Like if I was to go to a Chinese restaurant, end up with gastro, I'm probably not going to go back there. Highly unlikely. That gave me pretty bad gastro for a couple of days. I don't know exactly what it was because I tried everything. Unlikely. That was gastro. This is traversing birth. And yet we keep going back with the same obstetrician. You know, they did really try. They tried to help me the best way they could. But did they? I don't know. I mean, that's up to you, and it really is up to you. But if you're going into birth with fear, I do really believe that there is a piece of submission that happens for a woman when she traverses pregnancy in the registered model. And she submits and accepts.
Yep.
It's not necessary. And I don't think it's too, what's that word? I don't think it's very empowering. I don't think motherhood would be the way that it is had women actually experienced birth in bliss.
Yeah. Plus the benefits to the baby.
Yeah.
Sure, some things are unavoidable. Sometimes you need that system, which is best as emergency, but we rely on it for our health.
Yeah.
We put too much of our own power into it to keep us healthy. But the birthing process itself is actually it's a nature's first vaccine, really. Because as the child slides down or up or whatever position, comes out, as it passes through the vaginal, do we say vaginal wall or vaginal?
I would say vaginal.
Okay. As we slide through that vaginal wall, that's like a jump start to the baby's immune system. That's like the first, and then the bacteria on the mother's body also contains so many antibodies. And in native tribes, a lot of women didn't shower or bathe or clean themselves for about 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of the child's life. And that gave the baby all the nutrients that it needed.
Yeah.
On top of what's in mother's breast milk as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty profound and important to know. Like we do have this idea of skin to skin to help breastfeeding, and obviously that's now sort of a medicalized help. Like, oh yeah, okay, skin to skin for breastfeeding. But then there's the pressure of breastfeeding after a traumatic birth experience. Like that's really hard work.
So what's the average time, would you say, if there is, between birth and first meal?
For a baby? Oh, I don't know. It really depends. I think it just depends. Like obviously most of the time in both a kind of registered model and ancestral model, you will have the baby to the mother. Ideally straight away, the mother collects the baby from her womb and places her on her body.
No, I mean for the milk.
For the milk it's going to be dependent on that, right?
Yeah. So it's different every time.
Well, as the baby connects to the mother and then is on the breast or on the chest, and then most of the time I've seen babies suckling fairly quickly. Sometimes they don't suckle straight away.
I also read somewhere that the first, I guess, I don't know what else to call it.
Breastfeed.
Well, the first batch of milk, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
from the mother is an accumulation of her toxins pre that moment. So I've heard doctors and naturopaths say dispel that first lot and then give the baby the second lot.
Sounds like someone's decided to do some sort of check and decided that that's that's the way. Like they got too scientific and too focused on the microbial aspect of that. Ancestrally, humans have been placed onto a breast and fed from that breast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that is from today's because of the drugs or whatever they've been given, maybe. But gosh, I feel like that's taking the colostrum is like the wonder drug of a baby, and to just waste it like that just sounds terrible. And if it is toxin filled, well, maybe that's the lessons for the baby. Maybe that's part of the initiation of the curriculum that they have decided to come and be fed from on this earth as they become child. I don't agree, but it just seems like we've pathologized the physical body, and that mother is so created so perfectly to innately give that energy to their baby. So gentle, no.
Good.
Thanks.
I've got the gentleness out of that.
Just like, I guess one of the big things I want to get out of this share is that how we birth has a huge impact on our babies. It has a huge impact on us, which has a huge impact on our babies. Hence the importance of how mother is looked after throughout her labor, pregnancy before that, preconception before that, life before that, but even more so at this point in transition, how she is supported and revered and honored in her own way. Everything else would be a matter of, there's obviously women that do birth within the ancestral model and have birth trauma as well. You can't actually put that away. But at the end of the day, the women that I have seen actually prepare for birth through their pregnancy, do the work on themselves, connect in. The way that they move through their birth is like out of this world. It is the most empowering thing to watch, to witness, and to sit with. And those mothers tend to do fantastically. And then obviously you're supporting the whole, you're supporting the woman to then, and this is where we're coming to, is not only birth her baby, not only transition into mother, but also birth the placenta. So the birth is not finished until the placenta has been released. And once again, looking at it from this ancestral model aspect. And I think I just want to preface now that when I speak of the ancestral model, it is just the physiological factors of birth. That's all it is. There are points in time where things go wrong and there's adjustments to be made, for sure. But I'm not really we've seen enough of that. We know enough about things going wrong and if you can't hear me, but
She's
doing
quoting
lots of quote marks here. Things going wrong that need to be adjusted to, but this is the thing. Like life, there is death, and we have gotten so particular about saving everything, except the food and the oceans,
except the things that keep us alive.
Except the things that keep us alive. But in terms of keeping babies alive, 100%, we are very particular about that. And I mean, as a mother grieving from a loss of a baby, then of course, like, you would do anything to have that baby back. And it takes a lot to actually understand this idea of life will life if it's meant to.
Do you think that's also our culture interpreting and calculating everything just from a literal viewpoint?
Absolutely. But this is really hard. And I'm imagining if you are sitting there and you have lost a baby, I am really sorry. And I can imagine how hard it is to hear that life will life if it's meant to. But sometimes, there's something to that feels very innate to me, that feels like I am here to follow the Tao. I am here to be with my soul purpose and do what is that and trust that and allow that to be opened through me and move with me. And yet if I choose to go against that, well, that's okay, but that will not go away. That lesson will try to be learned.
Yeah. One way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so I was trying to keep this really light and fluffy because birth really can be bloody fantastic. It's not fluffy, but it's just like, it's sort of like the epitome of infinite potential.
So if someone is, let's say, due really soon, what's your...
If you're due really soon, make sure you have a support system in place that trusts and loves you. Set yourself up to be in a position to birth that enables you to feel complete power and beauty going into birth, feeling like I am a goddess and I am capable of this, and have everything around you that supports that.
What about for the female?
For the dad.
I'm just keeping it light.
For the dad, I would be saying too, you need to do your work just as much, even if not more, because you need to be able to witness your partner going through this transition.
And also, I think guys innately know that there's a natural survival order. I don't think we know it consciously, but a lot of us know it innately. Nature wants, first and foremost, that baby to survive. Then mum, then him. It's that order. Guys are relatively expendable. We know it. We own it. That's fine. I'm at peace with it. But we're the equivalent of, we said in the hormonal chat that a guy's like a dump truck. You can run us to the ground and we'll just keep going. Hormonally, a female is like a Ferrari. It's a highly tuned machine that can do a lot, but it's very sensitive.
Needs to be supported in the right way.
Needs to be regularly serviced and maintained and all that kind of stuff, where the guy can just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. So as for that natural selection, that's the order in what nature will prioritise. And there's even reports in when were the witch days? Was that medieval?
Yeah, 1800s.
Yeah, so in the medieval times when someone got hanged, for example, hanged, however you say that, she would pass away, but then up to a couple of days later, the baby would be born alive. True story. Yeah, that's me keeping it light.
What else happened in the 1800s, Matt?
Well, get comfy.
Yeah, and I think this is the reminder that we sort of need that, like, babies survived some pretty wild things.
Some pretty gnarly shit.
And, we're so obsessed with cleanliness, so obsessed. And when I was doing...
Because germs are dangerous, right?
So dangerous. They, kill everything.
All the things.
And that's so bogus because at the end of the day, it's like, there is so much power in allowing the humanness of ourselves to actually give back and give life. And it's just the idea of yes, the birth is not finished until the placenta is born, but we don't need to just pump a woman full of Pitocin or synthetic oxytocin to promote the release of that. We just need to trust her body will release that when it's time to release that, and let the labor finish, let the birth actually complete. Because it's not complete until that has happened. But we've put a time frame on that. We've also put lots of pressure on that and how it's meant to be and how it's meant to function and all the rest. And it's like, wow, I think what a shame.
The body's too dynamic to put restrictions and put parameters up. There's so much room for variations and this and that and, wind speed and...
All the pieces. Whether it's light or dark or hot or cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. And I think we can kind of go into this little bit, just like placenta birth and the placenta and the energetics of the placenta. Like that was the twin flame that grew alongside the baby. That in the womb, the baby decided, okay, or when the cells decided to separate and grow, a few of them went, you know what? Okay, this is exactly what happens.
Is that the placentarian accent?
Yeah, placentarian. Hello. Okay. Are you ready?
Fucking hell. Righto.
You know what? I have decided I will be the person who stays. I will be our rock. I will become a piece of flesh that connects to the source of mother and feeds you all of the energy, and I will commit to that.
Is the placenta from Sparta or somewhere, is it?
All placentas sound like that.
Right.
And then they're like, that whole pregnancy, they've been there. I am here for you. I have the source of mother coming through me, feeding you.
We should make a cartoon with this.
You should. And then just as they're about to birth, then the baby goes and they're stuck there and they're feeling pulled because they're connected to the cord and they're like, you left. Yes, you made it. And then they're like, oh, it's my turn. And they turn around and they start to feel this energy of what the cord is. They're no longer, their energy is no longer, then kind of disconnecting from source. And as they disconnect from the source of the mother, they're like, okay, thank you, mother. I am ready to vacate. And they slowly just like peel themselves off the womb, like a miracle organ. They're like, I am finished. Take me back to the earth. And they peel off and then they are released out of the vagina and they're like, fuck, here we are.
Freedom.
And then their energetics of this, like, oh my God.
Does their accent change?
I think they then die.
Oh, Paul, that's a shame.
Well, that's it. That's the death of the death of the fetus is now the movement in the child, and the placenta is now.
That's the caterpillar becoming.
That's the yeah.
What are they? Butterfly.
Butterfly. I don't know what part of the caterpillar it is. Their feet. No.
Which one?
Anyway, it's just like this idea that now, like this placenta who served so well has been fantastic. And whether or not the medical system decides that the placenta's been well, because sometimes they're like, oh, the placenta's failing. It's actually doing a terrible job. We need to get the baby out soon. It's like, well, the placenta somehow grew alongside that baby and
with an accent.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear it. Had you heard it, you might have heard it say, yeah, I am deliberately separating now so the baby knows to get going and they're going to birth soon. I don't know if that's the case, but maybe. And either way, then we don't even revere this organ that has literally been grown alongside our baby that is part of them.
And consuming?
Well, yes, you can do lots of different things with the placenta. Now, personally, I have consumed 2 of my placentas and I've consumed them within the first 48 hours because all mammals consume their placentas. Now, if you were to talk to some of my, what would you call them, my superiors or people that have been around the trap that are very Chinese medicine-y people, they would probably say, yeah, well, the reason that the mammals ate them is because they didn't want to get killed by other animals, so they ate the placenta straight away to save the children, essentially, because if someone got caught wind of that blood sac, they would come and kill them. Okay, valid. But also, why would every mammal do it? Like, every mammal innately does that. So to me, that felt very, very much like something that felt I was going through my animal stage and phase and feeling into that, and that felt really good for me to yeah, okay, we consume the placenta, that feels right. And I was also very conscious of within that the placenta is very, very estrogen dominant, and we want to flip into being more prolactin dominant as we start to produce milk. So the idea of essentially getting your placenta encapsulated and consuming that for quite some time doesn't really work in my mind, because you probably don't want to be maintaining this highly estrogenic dominant supplement when your body wants to transition into the prolactin dominance, and it sort of can't. It'll be sort of blocked.
Yeah. Those hormones stay elevated for good 18 to 23 months.
Yeah.
Post-birth.
Yeah. But they're going to have, you know, especially with the potency that is to consume that, you know, we're not doing that deliberately either. It's just, it's a natural formation of the physiology of postpartum. This time around, third baby, I am likely not going to consume my placenta, and instead I'm preparing to let the placenta, to experience a lotus birth, which is essentially just allowing the placenta time to separate from the baby. And then once that happens, once that occurs within, say, 10 days, once it has separated from the baby, then I will bury it back into the earth. There is a lot of literature and depth to the spiritual aspect and facet of the placenta, and putting the mother back to the mother. The mother placenta, being their mother placenta, going back to Mother Earth.
Oh, what does she say like?
She just sounds like a goddess. I can't do her voice today. But either way, so there is this big energetic force of that. And so until the placenta has actually been delivered back into the earth, it's almost like the baby hasn't quite landed. Now, I hear myself saying that now, and if you have had some form of what's that called? Registered model birth care, and your placenta was just thrown into the bin, I don't not believe that your baby can't land, that their life is done and they're doomed to forever be floating above the earth. Yeah. However, I would be very conscious to focus and practice keeping them close to the earth and keeping them connected to mother, so that they can maintain that sensation of completeness and I mean, mostly you're probably not listening to this if that was your way of being, but if that does resonate, then that's definitely something that you can do. But being really conscious that the whole birth process is a massive transition, a huge rite of passage as a woman. Each and every birth has that opportunity. Within very soon after birth, you are in a position to, you are still very vulnerable. And I think that's something to never forget, is the vulnerability and the sensitivity that comes up within the last 48 hours prior to the actual birth of the baby, to the first, say, 3 to 4 weeks, 40 days maybe, post-birth. You are as a woman, you're in your most vulnerable state. Sure. So no wonder when the outcomes of birth being a live baby and a well mother is all that's being focused on. You know, what even constitutes a well mother, when she essentially needs almost 6 weeks to feel well.
If it's a natural birth, 12 weeks if it's C-section.
But even then, I'm not talking physically. Well, I'm talking the metaphysical vulnerability of a woman in that time. Of course it's more than that. I mean, for a C-section, it probably goes up to 6 months, because they have to not only traverse the experience, but they have to traverse what comes as a mother. You just get, you're thrown in. You've got a crying baby, you must feed them. You don't get time to heal from abdominal surgery. You have to jump straight in. And that has a massive toll, takes a massive toll on a woman, let alone if she's got other children. But I do want to reiterate that no matter how your baby came into this world, it happened because it did. And it was because it was. There's nothing else. You cannot change it. You cannot adjust it. It just is what it is. And so you get to take the wins from that. You get to take the light from that. Or you can take...
And from a spiritual viewpoint, I mean, remember Yogananda said there are 60 billion souls just waiting for a human body. And to have one is the greatest gift in the universe. So a soul picked you, and a soul picked not only for you to be the parent, but also to be here right now. And I mean, the gift of life, the birth, it's a fucking miracle. Just that event in itself is a miracle, let alone getting to where we are. If you really sit with it, it's a miracle.
Yeah. And I think it's about time that we start to revere that in that way, to really honour the mother, and to really honour this process, and to remember that you are, as the mother going through this experience, powerful beyond measure. So I hope you have gained a few little insights and you are feeling empowered to birth your baby, and to know that you can do it, to know that you have been created to do it, and that no one need tell you otherwise. And if there is fear in your heart as you traverse the moments leading impending birth, then there are places to lean, and you should seek those answers sooner rather than later.
How you doing? You all right?
I'm fucking fine.
Sweet.
I feel great. I'm ready to rock.
Good chat.
Thank you. Thanks for today. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.
See you next week.
Soon. So, actually, welcome back, guys, because we,
By we.
by we I mean me, have had a baby.
A little human.
Human.
I was going to say child, but human came out instead. So a little human.
Little human.
Yeah.
Yes. I have birthed my baby, everybody. And so we thought we would come and...
So this is an episode within an episode.
Right. So we're just going to tack on the end, as you can hear, because you've just listened to that.
So how was everything?
Yeah, it was really good. So I essentially birthed my baby at 35 and 4 weeks at home in this space.
Here?
Right here.
Right.
Right there.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Is that what that...
This is the portal of birth right
this is
here,
life.
Matt. This
right
is
here.
life becoming life.
Yeah. This is the tree of life.
This is the tree of life. Yeah. And so through my birth, I say essentially my waters broke and there was a bit of a shock.
Well, talk us through that evening. Did it come out overnight, didn't it?
Yeah, so in the evening my children were a bit chaotic and really showing us like lots of bits and pieces, and they were just not slowing down. And we'd gotten up that morning to watch sunrise, and we were having such a beautiful day, and there was such a vibrant energy. My second daughter was quite emotional that day, and so I was feeling quite emotional as well, and I was like, oh, this is big. But I'd had a really big weekend leading into it. I had sat in birth with a friend. I had then gone to a birthing ceremony for another friend's child, and then I had a first birthday ceremony for another friend's baby. And so it was just like lots of bits and pieces leading into this. So I thought that was probably the emotional aspect. But yeah, then that night my kids weren't calming down, and I was like, okay. And then I was just doing some exercises that I'd started doing. It was kind of cultivating the sexual energy of the body. And I was thinking, and I sort of noticed, I was like, oh, maybe I just weed. And I'm like, that is so strange. Why? Why would I do that? Anyway, we sort of laid in bed, and then I told my kids, I'm like, maybe.
So what time was this? Roughly?
8 p.m.
8 p.m, yeah.
8 p.m. on a Monday, and I thought, okay, I better go to the toilet. And so then I went to the toilet, and then I wasn't weeing anymore. It was my waters were open. And that was that. And I was like, okay, this happened with my second child. My waters just opened, and then my...
So you're off the toilet at this point, just so we're clear.
On the toilet.
On the toilet still?
Sitting on the toilet, noticing that I'm not weeing anymore.
Right.
But there's water coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was like, all right. First thing that went through my mind is like, okay, I'm 35 weeks. This is earlier than I was expecting. Full trust, full acceptance that my baby's coming now.
So right there, what would normally happen in, let's say, a commercial
In the kind of other
medical
realm, you would probably call your doctor or midwife and head into the hospital, and they would then check you and adjust and see what's going on.
Yeah.
There is the potential that they would want to stop the labour from progressing from that point. They'd want to slow it all down. Or if it wasn't the case, they probably just want you to be observed and make sure that the baby came out well, and then they would want to observe the baby once the baby came.
Yep.
For me, I just sort of lent in and contacted my friends who were coming to support me at certain points through the labour and the early postpartum, and let them know that I think my waters had opened. I was pretty sure that was happening, and that who knows what will happen, whether this is going to take days or nights or how long. I had done a drumming journey right before my birth in preparation for it. Actually, there was 2 drumming journeys. One was what was going to happen through birth, and I knew it was going to sort of be a little bit longer, and it felt like it was going to slow and go fast and then slow and go fast. And then at the end, it was going to be like the water coming out of the plug hole, birth baby coming out. So that was how I had seen my birth happen. And so I was thinking, okay, I understand this is going to start and stop, maybe going to take days. So prepared for that. And then I also just the practicalities of what you need, whether that was, we already have a birth pool, so that was not a problem. I sent my partner to the garage to bring it in and set it up.
So birth pool, for people who don't know.
A birth pool is essentially just a blow-up pool that's big enough for an adult human to sit inside of.
Yep.
And
assume you put water in it?
Yes, you put water in it.
Very important.
Yeah, like a pool.
Yeah.
So sort of like a bath, a portable bath, really.
Okay.
A portable spa bath, like quite a big
Is it like a kid's pool type thing?
Yeah, but higher edges. So that the pool edge came up to here.
What, 3, 4 foot?
Is that 3, 4 foot? Maybe 2.
That is not 2 foot.
Okay.
2 foot's like there.
All right. Are you one of those? Are you that sort of surfer? Oh, it's about 3 foot.
At least 8.
Okay. So maybe it's about
10 feet tall.
10 feet tall, so you can really swim inside.
Yep. You get stuck.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, that my partner set up pool. Contacted my friend. She coordinated lots of bits and pieces. What do we need? Do we need towels? Do you have towels? And because I had essentially given all my birth things to my friend who was going to be birthing 6 weeks before me, or even longer, but she birthed a little bit later than she births.
Was she before you or after you?
Yeah, she birthed before me.
Right.
At 42 weeks, and I was now gone to labour at 35 weeks. So it was sort of a bit of we were not expecting to have children 2 days apart. We were more expecting a month or so apart. Anyway, she had all my birthing things. It wasn't that many things anyway, but it was just little birthing tinctures and herbs and just a few other little bits and pieces, but towels mainly. So I was like, we were just kind of back and forth with my friend Hayley, who was my birth doula, birth support, and we just got coordinated on the spot. And then by 8:30, I had started to feel some sensations. So
before you go on,
yeah,
what is a doula for people who don't know?
A doula is essentially someone who supports you in birth. They have they don't necessarily have any birth training. They don't necessarily have any medical background, although they might. They are essentially there to support you in whatever way you need through labour and birth, and then postpartum, which those 3 pieces, labour and postpartum, are probably the most important part. Whereas in the medical paradigm or the kind of registered paradigm that we've spoken about, their focus is birth.
Right.
What happens in the labour is not quite as important. What happens in the postpartum, well, obviously a healthy baby is all thereafter, and essentially breastfeeding mother.
Yep.
So a doula is essentially someone just support you and to really hold you and to see you as a woman birthing. That is, to witness that is what a doula or a birth keeper is there to do.
Yep.
Yeah, so...
So you're feeling all these sensations.
Yeah, so sensations started, and I had expressed to my partner, yeah, we're on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a bit like, come on, like, probably not. And I'm like, no.
Swedish skepticism.
Skepticism 101 was definitely going, and I was like, no, it's happening.
Yeah.
But then I was very aware that in my vision it had a start-stop process. So there was a bit of this, like, I was thinking, okay, it's not going to be as fast as my second daughter, who was a 4-hour labour and birth. This was going to be a little bit longer. Anyway, by about 10 p.m, I was sure I was in labour now. My sensations were building, but my focus was going really inwards. So in the initial stages of that, I was becoming really aware of how I wanted this to play out. And obviously, being 35 weeks, I hadn't done my usual prep, which would have been from 36 to when baby was coming in my mind. So I hadn't even started my kind of, the only preparation I'd done is started to do this sort of energetic activation, which is sort of like drawing in that Kundalini energy, awakening the base to kind of bring in the spiritual of the sexual energy, as I had hoped to find this orgasmic birth avenue. So that had happened the day before, the Sunday night, and then now we're at Monday night, and I'd done the exercise for the second time, and I'd gone into labour. So whether or not that actually drew me in there, whether my baby chose that, I'm trusting whatever it was a culmination of things. Interesting, it was the Sagittarius full moon on the Thursday before, and during that time...
So what does that mean?
Well, the Sagittarius full moon is just a really beautiful, abundant moon. It was this year at least, and it was very... very playful and fun, and it was sort of like really one of the moons that you sort of manifest on, whereas usually it's a full moon is to release and let go. So I was just feeling really energized and excited about this full moon. I was sure I was winning the lottery. It was like this big energy of abundance coming in.
You just got a different lottery than you
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was drawing all this energy in, and Lisa, an astrologer who is in our full moon circle, she offered us a drumming journey to do on the full moon to connect to our higher realms, so to connect to our guides. And so I did that, and I am very aware of what goes on in my mind, but I found a few guides, and one of them was a pharaoh with swagger. The next one was this lady who was quite concerned, and she had a list, and she was walking backwards and forwards, and I was like, my guide, like, why are you all pensive in my guide world? What are you doing here?
That's the doula I know. So that fits really well.
Anyway, and then I had...
we're moving on.
You're moving on. So there was a few others. I had Lenny the Mafia Man. He was there. And I had this, my goddess lady, and then a little pixie lady.
On up there.
They're all in here. Yeah, they're all up there, I guess.
But your guides are just a version of yourself.
Totally. So these really, like, elaborate, exciting people.
Multiple spirituality disorder.
Mate, I am triple split definition according to my human design, so I guess it all makes sense.
I'm in a nice mood. Yep. Move on.
So I was a bit like, I don't know about you, pensive, worried guide. Why are you worried? Anyway, so that was on the Tuesday or Wednesday, the week before.
So what did you take from that interaction? From
my pensive,
all
of my guides, I was just like, sweet, there you are. You're my people. I'll just, call on you when I need to. So yeah, that was that really. Yeah. But the only thing that was a bit confusing or concerning for me was Mother Hubbard, as I called her in that moment. I was like, why are you so concerned? Like, why have you got a list, and why are you walking back pacing? This feels a bit strange to me. But also everyone else has said to me, you're right where you're meant to be. You trust where you are. You're doing perfectly kind of thing. So I was like, sweet, sounds good. Anyway, so that had happened on the week before. And then when I had come into birth and I'd started to dive into the depths, I did a bit of quick revision, and I read one of my books that I've been reading. And the first thing it said was birth is perfectly created for humans.
Yeah.
And it is likely that you will birth between 35 and 45 weeks.
Yeah.
And that just was the only...
Is that you or is that humans in general?
Humans.
Okay.
35 to 45
Because we put
weeks.
such a line in the sand at 40.
Totally.
And if it's before that, oh no. If it's after that, oh no.
Well, yeah, and I think now we're even, like you'll hear in sort of that medical paradigm, is that, no, the baby's fully formed at 37 weeks. So whenever we pull them out from that point is fine.
Right.
But then the baby will essentially die if they wait for 42 weeks. So they must be pulled out at 41 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's sort of the medical paradigm of safety and risk assessment.
Which is all based on averages.
Totally.
And norms, which humans, we're too dynamic, there's too many variables.
Totally. And let's just make sure that those norms and those, what did you say, those norms
averages.
And averages are based upon what is done inside a hospital institution. It is not based upon physiological birth, because physiological birth is more likely a whole deep, much bigger range.
Well, if you look at human history, there'd be more of that than hospital births, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, I just flipped to a few pages. I wasn't sure what I was going to find. I just knew I was going to find what I needed. And this is the nth hour as I'm in imminent labor going, okay, I just want to bring in that, that last minute cramming before the big test.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I read.
Right.
35 to 45 weeks. And I was like, sweet, they got me covered here. I'm safe. I'm sorted. And I mean, it was just that reiteration of what I already knew.
Yeah.
It was just a confirmation for me, because I already have done this work to trust completely in my body and the flow that is physiological birth. So after this, I finished my cramming. I was like, okay, we're on. My friend is aware. She's getting herself prepped to come.
Yeah.
I then connect in a little bit to, okay, where am I going here? And so in the initial phases, I started singing a song, and it was like this really dancey song, and my body, I just wanted to dance. So I was like dancing around, and the song that is actually like a really, not a very birthy song. It's like
What's the song?
It's body, Okay, I'm going to sing it.
How does that go? Can you do a dance?
Body on mine, losing all my innocence, a body on mine. Then grinding on my innocence, a body on
I think
mine.
Latin reggae would have been really good.
Hell no, I've been waiting too long.
Okay, so moving on, yeah.
I got this cruel love. Anyway, the lyrics are terrible. But the music,
But the rhythm
and the dance, like it just, every time I'd go into a sensation, I was like, oh, this is cool. We're just going to dance here. And it kept me really calm and gentle for a really long time. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is the beginning of that energy. I'm like moving in to the portal. It felt really cool. But then by 1 a.m. I'm like, okay, I can feel that birth is imminent.
So what's your energy levels like at this moment?
Totally fine.
Okay.
Perfectly, at 8 p.m. I was like tired. I was ready for bed. The kids were calming down. Well, they weren't calming down. My older daughter was asleep by 9, which was ludicrous. But, obviously they were feeling into the energy of birth and kind of just feeling into that, like, awakeness, wildness, like what's going to happen, excitement. So when she fell asleep, I laid next to her and had a few sensations in that mode, like with her maybe every 10 minutes. So everything was moving along. And then, so then when I'm dancing around, the sensations are probably coming every 4 minutes, maybe to 10 minutes, just kind of varying. Like I said, I knew it was going to sort of start and stop and kind of maneuver around in that way. And then I called my friend at 1:30 and said, hey, I think you should probably come. I know the baby's not coming just yet, but I think I want you to be here soon. And so then she arrived at about 2 a.m. And at that point, I'd been in the pool for a little bit. I went outside. The moon was in the sky. It was just like this gleamingly clear night. And I was just walking up and down. And I was like, oh, I'm doing that pacing thing. And I was reminded of this old Mother Hubbard. And then I was like, oh my gosh, she was trying to tell me there's a list of things I need to get sorted. There's something coming potentially. Anyway, now that I
Is
look,
this like a metaphorical list or an actual to-do list?
well, I have had a to-do list. Like I had a food shop to be done at 39 weeks for labor. I had like what drinks I wanted at that time too. And like I had all these pieces of this puzzle in place, which none of that was done. Like preparation for finishing work, like all of these layers that were just there on a list ready to be executed. But
Baby had other ideas.
yeah, absolutely. So I came back inside. My friend had arrived. I jumped into the pool. Sensations were getting stronger by this point, and I instantly looked up to this tree, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
This tree or another tree?
This tree.
This one. Okay.
This tree right here. And I thought, and I landed into connecting to my great-great-grandmother, and I think she was known as Ma.
Yeah.
And that is who I've now correlated or connected to as being Old Mother Hubbard. Because then when I asked her, can you hold me now? I feel like I would love your energy to hold me. I felt this like Pocahontas-like spirit wrapping around me and like holding me in a way that I've never felt held before. And everything just felt so much softer. And the clearest words were just like, my darling, I've got you. And I was just like, wow, like I've never felt so encompassed and held in my life by anyone. And I was like, oh, this is really special. And then the sensation started to come. And I was like, usually in work, when I've worked in birth, I'm usually trying to ask or invite someone to bring more energy in, allow the energy to come, like entice that into your space so that you can, you know, bring your baby forth faster essentially, or like use that power to bring them forth. And what I realized in that moment was what I learned was specifically that you don't need to do that. Like we don't need to bring this in faster. We can make it softer. We can ask for it to be slower. We can ask it to be more gentle, and it's still going to do what it needs to do perfectly. And that was one of the biggest realizations for me in that moment was like, wow, all I need is love around me to feel held, to have experienced and walked the path that I walked up until that point, to deeply trust myself and my inner knowing that I'm capable, to set myself up with the people in my space that deeply love me and are capable of witnessing all that is. And then in that moment, I could ask for softness. And as I did that, the sensations dissipated. I all of a sudden wasn't feeling any movement. I could feel movement.
Were you outside or inside at this point?
I was in the pool.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd come back inside. But I just felt it was such a, oh, wow, this is the thing. And then when the sensation ended, my body would soften and I would just feel this like I was in a liminal space. Like I really was like outside of time space. It was
so you're like full astral.
Totally.
Yeah.
And everything felt very slow moving. And like, you know, like if I moved my hand too fast, it would atomize or whatever. You like that kind of sensation. And it was just something that I was like, this is that entry point of life.
So that would have been that full release of DMT, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's sort of interesting because when I kind of visioned my orgasmic birth, I was thinking like a clitoral orgasm type sensation, and it was so much deeper and more profound than that, which is quite, which sort of what awakens so much to be experienced and like aware of, because it's so much more than the average experience.
I wonder how much DMT we produce in that moment if it was to be measured.
I think you know what birthing woman's like, okay, yeah, measure my DMT now. I don't know how you would even measure it. How do they do it?
Hypothetical, Nuala.
I know. I'm just saying, I think there's actually someone that has said that.
It'll be on Google somewhere.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I'm wondering how.
Next time we'll
all right,
you up.
I'll like figure that one. But yeah, I just so I think that's the big thing that I came to the realization. You don't need a supercharged birth. We don't need to fasten it up. We don't need to invite anything in. We can just fully be in birth. And I hadn't quite gotten to that point with my other 2 births. My second birth, I was there close to it, but I hadn't. It was quite quick. You know, I was literally in active labor for about 2 hours before she was born. But, you know, either way, it's this kind of like this energetic shift and pivot that was happening.
Yep.
And, but even in my second birth, I think I was inviting it in. I'm like, you can come now, you can come now. Anyway, right, this is where everything kind of lined up. I was like kind of in this liminal space. I'd landed. I was like, I've taken the gift of this experience.
What time would this be now?
We'd probably be looking at 5 a.m.
Okay. You've been up all night
Yeah,
in the
essentially.
pool.
In the pool.
Pool party, yep.
Having a pool party, just hanging out, breathing, making sounds. Like my partner was like, wow, like I've never anyway, he was saying he'd never seen anything like that before, and heard anything. He said it sounded like there was a ghost that was like that was coming, like, because I would be breathing out and I would just keep breathing out and the breath would go and I'd be like, and then there was like that high-pitched squeal sound that comes at the end of the breath. Anyway, so that was happening a little bit there, but for me that was just like ecstasy, essentially. There was sensations at points, and then at 5 a.m. my older daughter woke up and she sat on the bed and she looked over at me and she just smiled. And I'm like, yeah, the baby's coming. And she was just so excited and she just sat there watching. And then she said to my partner, she's like, so babe, Papa, the baby's coming now. And he was like, yeah. And then at that point I was like, okay, we need some music. I need to like stay in my zone. And then about 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes later, my sensations started again. The sensations started to really ramp up. So I did an internal on myself and checked where the baby's head was, and I could feel the baby's head. Mm-hmm. I could feel that the cervix was fairly effaced and soft, like everything is moving out of the way. And in that moment, my body just, the plug hole went. The plug got pulled and here came the tornado of movement down. Yeah. So like my baby's head was, you know, right up the top of the canal, and within that, from that point to out was, was about 5 minutes and four pushes or 4 ejections from my body. And so as that happened, out she came into the world, and I had another baby girl. And in the moment of right before she came out, my second daughter woke. So they were both sleeping in the bed in the same room that we're in now. Mm-hmm. My second daughter woke and she just sat up, and she was a bit concerned because we hadn't really done the noises as such. Whereas my first daughter, I'd prepped her quite a bit before my second was born. Whereas my second daughter, she hadn't had the preparation that we were going to go into that week. So she was a little bit concerned, but then by the time she sat next to my older daughter and my partner was holding my hand, and then like I said, it was very quick that the plug hole just went, and that water just started like gushing out. So out she came, and everything was very well managed and received. My body survived perfectly. My baby was on me straight away, and we just sat in that energetic force field for.
So the baby on the skin straight away. Tell people about that.
Yeah, she was just born and then onto my chest, and we've spoken about that you would have just listened to that episode.
What did we talk about?
Yeah, we talked about skin to skin, and how important it is for them to be straight onto your chest, and the energetic changes, the biome changes, but all of that. So she was straight onto my skin, and then within about 20 minutes my body started to try and eject the placenta, and then after about that 20-minute time, my kids had been in the pool with us. I got my partner to hop into the pool and hold my baby, and then I sat with myself, just kind of meditated a little bit, and then landed and like held the cord a little bit and put gentle traction. I could feel the placenta was there. And then as I gently touched on it, like drew on it, you have to go back in, and the you're going to get another big sensation, but without all the energetics that you were just under, the spell you're under essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a bit of a like, I had to build myself up and be like, okay, we're in, we're ready. And then after like a little bit of traction on the cord, my placenta came out, and we just sort of, and after that there's just nothing, like everything lands. And because birth isn't finished until the placenta is born. Because that's obviously the baby's twin connector. And this time around, we chose to do a lotus birth, which is where you leave the placenta attached to the baby. I had the placenta in a bowl for a few days, and then I moved it into a bag, which was a bad idea, but I would have prepared it probably better than I did. Instead, it was what it was. I moved it back out of the bag, back into the bowl. And
What do you have in the bowl with it?
I had a little bit of salt on it, but mainly just rose petals and calendula. Just sort of, it's just kind of creating an aromatic smell, really. But yeah, it stayed there for 5 days. And then at 5 days, we chose to do a little ceremony in here just with my daughters and my partner, and just like a landing ceremony for baby to land as well onto the earth. And that night, her placenta detached. So it was a pretty profound and special experience. And yeah, just kind of since that point, it's just been, I don't think I've ever felt the amount of love that I've been feeling. I've also been feeling immense emotion, which is bigger than I was expecting, but in a really beautiful way. It's almost like I'm so in love with my child, I could cry. That kind of feeling all the time, which I don't think I just was ecstatic with my other two. I was just so happy with them. It wasn't this is like really emotional.
So you're not just happier with this one?
I don't know that I'm happier as such. It's just different. It feels very different. And I think it's a lot to do with the layers of the realms that I've traversed to get to where I am now. And I think that's sort of,
It sounded like you almost went to the soul realm and it's like picked her up from school type thing and brought her back, brought her here, from what you were saying.
Yeah, she feels like the most divine piece of flesh I've ever held. And I look at my other two daughters and I just want to hold them now even more. Like I feel like the love is encapsulating them even more. But yeah, absolutely felt like that. And it was funny because I looked up at the tree after everything was done and I was just like, wow, that was so cool. And I kind of closed my eyes and I could sort of see my guides like just standing there. And my
Was she still pacing?
No, Great Ma was like, you sorted now, you're good. Like she calmed. She was calm, I think, once I had put the two pieces together, that there was something coming that I wasn't quite ready for. Or maybe I was aware of, right? It was something in my periphery that was aware of it. I just wasn't
your
mentally aware
focus,
of it. So yeah, that was it's been a really wild journey, but also something that feels very profound and something that I think is available to everyone. You have to, a good friend of mine who, which is also one of those things I just wanted to touch on. I'm 2 weeks postpartum now, and the first few days of postpartum were pretty tough, but just kind of managing 3 little humans, coordinating all the bits and pieces. My friends
asking for treatments.
Yeah, needing help and support in all the ways possible. But my friends really rallied together. They supported me with food. They've supported me with like caring for my snacks. Yes, caring for my children.
Yeah.
Matt has yet to put his hand up for that, but I'm sure.
For what?
To care for my kids.
What your snacks?
Oh, snacks. Right. Care. Look after my kids. Anyway, he'll get there. But yeah, so I got that energy rallied around me really quick. Obviously no one was expecting me to have a child for another month at least. So they all just kind of came in and really held me together, which has been like absolutely fantastic. And like I said, I'm 2 weeks postpartum today, and it feels pretty, like that feels really big as well to still have that now, like people still rallying around. I know it's going to dissipate within the next few weeks, but for now it just feels so nice and such a pulse, such an energy. And that I did also have one of my best friends, Simone, come down, and she lives in the caravan. And so I had asked her, can you come down and just be with me? And so she's just been essentially my postpartum nurse, which has just been the most epic thing to have someone clean my space. She cleaned my windows the other day. She's just getting into it all, like all the things that I would have probably wanted to have before birth, but like having her here and supporting me and holding me has just been out of this world. And I think that every mother really deserves that in this time, to have to have the doula who's there to spiritually hold you, to nourish you, to have people around you to give you treatments. And
Are doulas, are they involved with the medical?
no,
Like if you go to hospital to give birth?
they can absolutely be a part of that setting.
So that's an optional extra.
Yeah, and all private. It's nothing to do with the hospital.
Right.
So, like I said, they are not related to the medical paradigm. However, some doulas, and that's why doula and birth keeper are kind of separated, is because doulas tend to be registered under a doula governing body. And that sort of doula I would probably separate from what I'm talking about. And because you have to really trust and believe in birth to go down the route that I did.
Yep.
Because it's the ancestral wisdom of humanity. It is the spiritual intertwining of that. And I'm sure there's so many layers that I haven't even touched on. But at this point in time, what I've been able to encompass feels pretty profound. Any more questions?
Well, if someone was going to go down that route,
The ancestral route?
let's say they're 2-3 months out from birth. Yep. We get told that you give birth in the hospital. That's just, there's no ifs or buts. That's just what you do. So someone has heard this or heard something else, and they've done a bit of their research and all that kind of stuff. What advice? What if there was a template / guidebook, whatever the podcast, the version of a ebook would be, p-book. I've just trademarked that term.
Yeah, ebook coming out soon.
Yeah. And they wanted to explore it more. Billa's just making noises.
Yeah,
and they wanted to know more.
Yeah.
Are there resources or any guidance you can give them?
Yeah, and I mean there are quite a few beautiful places that they could reach to now. So obviously I'm based in like Sydney, southern Sydney, and so that the resources that I have are probably more in-person things. Like people, there's a whole network of birth keeping birth people that I would like reach to. So that's people like my friend Haley, or people like you could go towards people like Carla Sage Birthwork, and then even people that write the textbooks like Rachel Reed. There's also Rachel Reed is a midwife who has given up her registration and now shares about physiological birth. So she has the medical background, but she is more for the physiological. The other aspect is there are quite a few spiritual birth options out there, and I think that one of the most important things is if you are 2 to 3 months out from birth, I would probably recommend you do my pregnancy masterclass.
What's that about?
So a pregnancy masterclass is based on the Tao principles of birth and birthing the Tao, so birthing life. And I go through the month by month of what we should be digesting and processing, which essentially is what I've walked through my pregnancy and into the postpartum. And it is really about the spiritual aspects of that. Because it's not just physical, and you do have such an opportunity to utilize this time in pregnancy to grow and to learn.
It's a rite of passage, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you've got 10 months to do it, or for me, 9. But 9
You
months.
just show it off.
God, I was a bit you know what? There has to be a piece of me that there's a part of me that is grieving not being pregnant still.
Any more on the way?
No, I don't think so.
You good?
Good. Feeling really good. There's a part of me that grieves not having that time. And I know that there's women that are at 42 weeks and they're like, oh my God, what I would give for this baby to come. But for me, there's never an issue with that, because there was no one that was going to tell me that I had to do anything otherwise, that I couldn't do as I was doing already. So it just feels like piece of me just like kind of got gypped my last, like the nice part of like, I know that for me personally, the end of pregnancy has always just been really beautiful. Like I've really enjoyed it. I've been able to really land in sort of farewells slowly, slow farewells. Instead, it was like Band-Aid ripped off. And I went in, probably the last 2 weeks has been me kind of doing all the things that I would have done over the last 6 weeks in minutes and days. Which
Time would be working a bit differently for you right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It feels, But in saying that, it all feels very, like I'm deeply trusting all of it, and it sort of is. So I guess what you want to do is, if you are in a position where you're like, okay, I want to make some changes, I want to do some things, like you can reach out to us. We can put you into in the right direction for you, because I think that if you're 2 to 3 months out, you depending on what way you've walked thus far, it could be a little bit difficult to do everything. However, if you are looking to conceive, you are in an optimal position to empower yourself to experience a spiritual pregnancy journey and to experience everything physiologically capable to you. It's a hard one, because even women that have walked the spiritual journey can end in a different things can end differently if they don't have the right people in supporting them.
Do you need that right environment that's really congruent with you as a human, but also in who you want to be as well, and people that see you in that light?
Absolutely.
I've got another question. Bit right field.
Go.
Can you give tips on how to communicate with baby in womb?
I would say personally, all 3 of my babies have communicated to me in the way that I am actioning things. So it's very clear that didn't come from me.
Example?
So in my second pregnancy, I was trying to build a business. I was pushing a DA to get a clinic, a postpartum center set up, essentially. And I was fighting for it. And I knew I was fighting, and I knew I was pregnant, and I knew I needed it done.
Right.
But a few days before the DA was disapproved, I got a sensation that it was all going to be okay and that it was time to let it go. And that is not me.
No, it is not. It is not.
So and then from that point, I was getting nudged that it was very clear to me, the nudges and where they were coming from. This pregnancy felt very similar. However, I was already kind of on that trajectory to do a lot of the spiritual work, to work month by month, to like deep dive into my own stuff, and to like dig it all out. So that, I think, from a really simple standpoint, I think you just need to get really clear from all of the stuff that's going on around you. And the more that you can clear that channel, the more you're able to hear the messages. And that's something that I feel like in birth, that message from my great-great-ma or from my spirit guides, that felt just so clear. Like it was like it was like someone was talking to me. That's how clear it was. It wasn't a nudge. It wasn't a like feeling. It was words that were
Clear
like
channel.
within the liminal space speaking directly to me.
Yeah.
And with crispness that you can catch on these microphones that we've so eloquently chosen.
We've nailed this audio thing.
Have. So yeah. What about you, Matt? What would you say in terms of connecting to baby? Because obviously I just want to touch on, I was 100% I was having a boy. I've had a bit of an inkling after we had essentially conceived her. I had a dream that night that there was a young boy, 15-year-old, and it would look just like my partner, probably was my partner, and just me having a dream about my 15-year-old partner. However, I was like, that's it. That must be my baby boy, and that's what it's going to be. And I had done a few more meditations, and I'd written down in my journal, and which I'd been looking through recently, that I was having a boy and that he was going to have dark curly hair. And interesting, both my two daughters, first and second, had no hair or slight blonde, like a blonde wisp over their head. And this baby has come out with brown, slightly curly hair. So I just thought they were a boy. Anyway, Matt then tells me, after I tell him that I've had my baby, I won't be coming into work today.
You said B or G.
Yes.
And I said G.
Yes.
And who was correct?
Well, you couldn't guess.
To be fair, I narrowed it down to 2. So I was going to be dead right or dead wrong.
Yes.
I believe I was correct, wasn't I?
You were correct. She was a girl. She is a girl. Yeah. But yeah, so I was wrong. Anyway, so what would you say, Matt, in terms of connecting?
Well, when you were talking about connecting to your child, I had a mate who, not every day during his wife's pregnancy, but he would paint on her tummy. And obviously as she grew, the paintings got a bit more grand.
Yes.
But he would spend every day, or at least every other day, massaging her feet, doing something with her feet, like what's it called? Reflexology on hands, and he would paint pictures on her tummy, non-toxic paint, of course.
Lucky.
But the interesting thing with that is when she gave birth and the kid was of age to go to like an amusement park, as an example, they went to get face painting done. And as soon as the kid saw the paint, he lifted up his shirt and showed the lady painting his tummy.
Wow. That's wild.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think this is like, isn't this just like, we could talk about this all day, but just the importance of a mother having a gentle pregnancy in the best way she can, and feeling really supported by her partner, like we've spoken about in so many episodes. Just like, relationship should be full love, so that love is shared and empowered, and that is what brings life and expressed, and that's what brings life forward. I have to give credit to my partner for all of that. Like he's been, when I was going through the trenches of the first trimester, like the feeling of being held and nourished by the masculine, by my partner, has just been was out of this world. And obviously there were moments where he faltered too, faltered as in he was exhausted too, because and even in the early postpartum, I'm early postpartum now, but even in the first days, he then took over being the provider, the supporter, the nourisher of our other children. And I just essentially was wrapped in cotton wool and became the queen in bed. And I did stay in bed for almost 8 days. I obviously got out to go to the toilet. But yeah, the bucket beside the bed wasn't useful anymore.
Okay. I wasn't going to say anything, but...
Well, I did use the bucket beside the bed straight after birth, which was great. Just in case you're interested.
Cool.
But yeah, other than that, I did get up to go to the toilet, but otherwise I was just in bed the whole time. And my baby hasn't left this room more than a handful of times, and we haven't left the house yet, because it is really important and it's cold. But it feels really important to just really hold the bubble closed for as long as possible.
We just have the time, when it's time. And I think if you're you've got that partner to lean on and just kind of relax and know that he's got it, and lean into it.
Yeah, it's really special. And so I highly recommend making sure you choose the right partner before you go through the deed.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Yeah.
I think we've got over a half hour.
Yeah, half hour is well and truly
That was
over.
half an hour ago.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks,
I hope
guys.
you gained some more knowledge on birth today, and
This is definitely the end of this episode now.
definitely end this episode. So thanks for coming, and we'll
See you next week.
See you next week.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.